Do you remember the first time FARSCAPE pulled you into its wild universe? It felt like a story of survival, identity, and strange heroes lost in the unknown. But the real twist came years later. Illness and quiet heartbreak took several beloved actors long before fans realized. Now, we look back at the actors we cherished and honor the legacies they left behind before fading from our world. Ron Hadrich as Captain Durka. Ron Hadrich was born on April 9, 1929, in Adelaide, Australia. At 70 years old, he played Captain Celto Durka, the feared peacekeeper officer known for his cruelty, manipulation, and cold military precision in FARSCAPE in 1999. His portrayal of Durka across 4 episodes brought a sharp, menacing presence and marked one of his final memorable screen performances. The path that led him to this role stretched across decades of hardship and reinvention. After a devastating knee injury ended his cricket career in the 1950s, he was forced into acting during a time when the profession was unstable and underpaid. Years in England exposed him to discrimination against Australian performers, and his return home brought financial collapse when multiple theater projects failed in the 1970s. Even as he delivered acclaimed work in Hamlet, King Lear, and Quigley Down Under, he fell into a period of deep depression that interrupted his career. That emotional weight followed him into his later life. His marriage offered stability, but it also placed immense strain on his wife as she cared for him through long battles with heart disease and lung cancer. Despite declining health, he refused to step away completely from the craft he loved, continuing voice work well into 2019 and clinging to performance as the one constant he could still control. Sadly, Ron Hadrich passed away on February 11, 2020, at age 90, during a period of pandemic isolation that left his final days painfully quiet. He left behind an estimated net worth of around $2 million. Jonathan Hardy as Dominar. Rigel XVI Jonathan Hardy was born on September 20, 1940, in Wellington, New Zealand. At 59 years old, he played the voice of Dominar Rigel XVI, the deposed Hynerian monarch whose sharp wit, arrogance, greed, and unexpected emotional depth became central in FARSCAPE in 1999. His performance became one of the most recognizable icons of the show. By the time he reached FARSCAPE, Hardy had already endured storms that would have broken many performers. Throat cancer surgery in 1990 removed part of his tongue and permanently altered his voice, an unthinkable blow to someone whose career depended on sound. Hollywood rejected him for sounding too Australian, fueling years of depression even as he earned an Oscar nomination for co-writing Breaker Morant. Despite all of this, he fought relentlessly to keep working. A heart transplant in 2000 extended his life, but required medication that caused constant infections, while diabetes added further complications. Even so, Hardy continued performing in Mad Max Moulin Rouge and acclaimed stage productions across Australia and New Zealand. His insistence on working became part of what gave his portrayal of Rigel such sharp emotional bite. Sadly, Jonathan Hardy died on July 30, 2012, at age 71, after developing sepsis from a leg surgery meant to restore his mobility. At the time of his death, his estimated net worth was about $1.5 million, earned through decades of acting, writing, and voice performance. Shane Bryant as Carvok. Shane Bryant was born on August 17, 1946, in London, England. At 53 years old, he played Carvok, the terrifying genetic manipulator in the episode Eat Me from Season 3. A sadistic villain whose twisted experiments left an unforgettable mark in FARSCAPE in 2001. However, the road that carried Bryant to FARSCAPE was carved through turbulence and reinvention. After early acclaim in London, he faced damaging accusations during a 1970s British theater scandal, which, though proven false, left lasting emotional wounds. Depression followed, accompanied by periods of alcohol misuse as he struggled to reclaim his footing. Seeking escape from what he called the Hollywood curse, He moved to Australia in 1983, only to face new drama when his investments collapsed and left him nearly bankrupt in the 1990s. Yet he continued acting, writing novels, and building a second career through films like The Light Horseman and Lady Chatterley's Lover, trying to rebuild what had repeatedly been torn apart. His personal life carried its own heaviness. His marriage to Australian actress Wendy Hughes crumbled after decades together, and although he later found companionship again in Sydney, illness strained even his closest relationships. Cancer entered his life in 2018, beginning a long and painful decline. The disease spread to his bones, forcing him to retreat from acting and leaving him to fight chronic pain while isolated from his children in England during the pandemic. Shane Bryant died on May 26, 2021 at age 74 in Sydney after a long battle with prostate cancer. His final days were marked by distance from the family he longed to see but could not reach due to global restrictions. He was farewelled quietly by those closest to him, leaving behind an estimated net worth of about $800,000, drawn from decades of film work, novels, and screenwriting. Ben Browder as John Crichton. Ben Browder was born on December 11, 1962, in Memphis, Tennessee. At 37 years old, he starred as John Crichton, the human astronaut accidentally flung across the universe and forced to survive among alien fugitives in FARSCAPE in 1999. His portrayal transformed Crichton into one of science fiction television's most beloved heroes. That success, however, came with a steep emotional price. When FARSCAPE was abruptly canceled in 2002, Browder described the moment as the worst professional shock of my life, a blow so severe he nearly abandoned acting altogether. Filming in Australia had already stretched his family to its limits, and a serious on-set back injury left him bedridden for months, adding physical pain to professional uncertainty. Even after returning to work in projects like Stargate SG-1 and earning multiple Saturn Awards, he continued to wrestle with anxiety, particularly after the pandemic disrupted the stability he had fought to build. Through all of this, his marriage anchored him. Browder and his wife, actress Francesca Buller, moved their 2 children across continents as he pursued work, and she appeared in several FARSCAPE episodes beside him. Their long-standing marriage became a quiet partnership of shared sacrifice, long-distance filming, and the emotional balancing act required to raise a family while living inside the unpredictable world of science fiction television. As of 2025, Ben Browder is 63 years old and remains active through convention appearances, voice work, guest roles, and independent film projects. He continues managing chronic back pain and lifelong asthma, but treats both with discipline and humor. His estimated net worth is around $4 million, built through decades of acting, convention events, and real estate investments that now provide stability after years of uncertainty. Claudia Black as Aaron's son. Claudia Black was born on October 11, 1972, in Sydney, Australia. At 27 years old, she played Aaron's son, the disciplined, emotionally guarded peacekeeper who evolved into one of the most beloved leads. Her performance blended intensity and vulnerability in a way that defined the emotional core of FARSCAPE in 1999. That role, however, came with a price. After FARSCAPE, Black struggled with the industry's perception of her, repeatedly being typecast into strong female warrior archetypes. This led to 2 years of unemployment that she later described as one of the darkest periods of her career. Those professional frustrations overlapped with a painful divorce in the 2000s and a difficult battle with postpartum depression, challenges that forced her into therapy just to regain her footing. Even as she gained recognition for roles like Vala Maldoran in Stargate SG-1 and major voice acting credits such as Morrigan in Dragon Age, she often spoke about the emotional toll of constantly fighting to prove she could be more than one type of character. Her personal life shaped her resilience. Her marriage to producer Bob Gazzo ended quietly after years of strain, leaving her to rebuild stability while raising her son. Later, she formed a new partnership and welcomed a daughter, finding in that small family the emotional grounding she had lacked during the chaos of her early career. As of 2025, Claudia Black is 53 years old and remains an active force in genre television and video games, working steadily from her home base in Los Angeles. She continues to discuss trauma and mental health openly, hoping to help others through experiences similar to her own. Her estimated net worth is about $3 million, sustained by her long run in Stargate, her extensive voice acting portfolio, and ongoing work in major franchises. Anthony Simcoe as Ka Dargo. Anthony Simcoe was born on June 7, 1969, in Sydney, Australia. At 30 years old, he took on the role of Ka Dargo in FARSCAPE in 1999, portraying the towering Luxan warrior with equal parts rage, grief, and tenderness. His physical presence and emotional range made Dargo one of the series' most iconic characters. But the physical demands of that role left lasting scars. During filming, Simcoe suffered a severe knee injury that required multiple surgeries and forced him out of acting for nearly 5 years. The show's sudden cancellation only worsened his emotional state, driving him into a period of heavy drinking as he struggled to adjust to life after the series. At the same time, his family life was shaken when his parents divorced in the 2000s. A late-in-life rupture, he admitted, affected him far more deeply than he expected. Even while he gradually returned to television through projects like Underbelly and The Inbetweeners 2, he continued managing chronic pain from his on-set accident. His home life, however, became his anchor. His marriage to model Renee Simonson in 2002 gave him the stability he needed to recover, and her support was instrumental in helping him end his dependence on alcohol. Their daughter grew up during this period of healing, and Simcoe frequently credited his family with pulling him out of a downward spiral that could have ended his career entirely. As of 2025, Anthony Simcoe is 56 years old and works selectively in Australian film and television while also performing as a musician with his band, Signal Room. His estimated net worth is about $1.2 million, earned through steady work in Australian television and the enduring legacy of his role in FARSCAPE. Gigi Edgley as Chiana. Gigi Edgley was born on June 28, 1977, in Perth, Australia. At just 22 years old, she played Chiana, the rebellious, silver-skinned Nabari known for her agility, sensuality, and unpredictable heart in FARSCAPE in Season 2, 2000. Originally planned as a one-episode guest star, her performance was so compelling that she became a series regular. The years surrounding FARSCAPE were filled with both professional breakthroughs and painful emotional challenges. Edgley quickly became typecast after playing Chiana, with casting directors repeatedly associating her with quirky alien roles, leaving her with long stretches of unemployment after the show ended. At the same time, she endured a traumatic relationship in the early 2000s, in which she suffered emotional manipulation. A wound, she later said, shaped the guarded yet empathetic qualities she brought to her characters. Her personal life eventually became a space of healing. Though she never remarried after the breakdown of her early relationships, she later found stability with a long-term partner beginning in 2015. And together they welcomed a son who she often describes as her greatest source of strength. As of 2025, Gigi Edgley is 48 years old and continues working across acting, music, performance art, and science fiction conventions around the world. Her estimated net worth is around $500,000, earned through decades of creative work both on-screen and on stage. Lonni Tupu as Captain Bialar Kreis and Pilot, voice. Lonni Tupu was born on November 20, 1957, in Auckland, New Zealand. At 42 years old, he joined FARSCAPE in 1999 in an extraordinary dual role. Captain Bialar Kreis, the vengeful peacekeeper commander hunting John Crichton, and the voice of Pilot, the gentle, wise, four-armed navigator bound to Moya. His performances gave the show both menace and heart, showcasing his impressive vocal and dramatic range. Yet behind that versatility was a man carrying deep personal battles. Tupu faced persistent racial discrimination in Australia and Hollywood due to his Maori and Samoan heritage, a reality that narrowed opportunities and slowly pushed him toward depression. These struggles intensified in the 2000s when he lost his brother in a sudden accident, a grief he later described as one of the defining emotional blows of his life. Despite these hardships, he continued building a respected career through roles in The Matrix Reloaded, numerous Australian productions, and decades of theater work. Through it all, his family remained his foundation. Tupu married his wife Leilani in 1990, and together they raised 2 children while supporting his unpredictable artistic path. His work expanded into directing, acting coaching, and theater leadership, where he became known as a mentor to young Pacific actors. That contribution earned him recognition within New Zealand's artistic community and several awards that acknowledged both his talent and his cultural impact. As of 2025, Lonni Tupu is 68 years old and continues performing selectively while focusing heavily on teaching, directing, and voiceover work. His estimated net worth is about $1 million, accumulated through decades of acting, teaching, and creative leadership. Wayne Pygram as Scorpius. Wayne Pygram was born on October 13, 1959, in Melbourne, Australia. At 40 years old, he played Scorpius. As the half-Scaran, half-Sabachian mastermind obsessed with wormholes, Pygram created one of science fiction's most unforgettable villains in FARSCAPE. But behind the terrifying mask was a man who had already survived real pain. In the 1990s, Pygram suffered severe burns during a stage production accident, an injury that scarred him physically and emotionally. Yet he continued performing through the pain. After FARSCAPE ended, he faced a financial downturn that forced him to rethink his career, turning to teaching percussion and stage work to stay afloat. Through every twist, his family became his anchor. Pygram married actress and singer Vanessa Downing in the 1980s, and together they raised a son while navigating the unpredictable world of entertainment. His career continued with remarkable highlights, including portraying Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars Episode III, Revenge of the Sith, a brief but iconic homage to Peter Cushing that earned him a Saturn Award nomination. In 2025, Wayne Pygram is 66 years old and still works in selective acting roles, voice acting, and theater collaborations while living a quieter life focused on teaching and creative projects. His estimated net worth is around $2 million, built from his long career across television, stage, and film. David Franklin as Lieutenant Miklo Braca. David Franklin was born on March 7, 1962, in Melbourne, Australia. At 37 years old, he joined FARSCAPE as Lieutenant Miklo Braca, a disciplined, ambitious peacekeeper officer. His character marked Franklin as one of the series' most memorable recurring antagonists. Yet his life behind the screen unfolded in a far more complicated way. After years of consistent roles in Xena, Warrior Princess, The Matrix Reloaded, and Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles, Franklin reached a breaking point. The industry increasingly typecast him as military or government authority figures, leaving him feeling boxed in and creatively unfulfilled. The pressure eventually pushed him to step away from acting altogether, choosing instead to work as a film professor. Throughout these challenges, his personal life remained a steadier force than his career. Franklin has been married for years and has children who supported him through the highs and lows of performing, teaching, and rebuilding his creative direction. With their encouragement, he found the courage to return behind the camera, making his directorial debut in 2023 with The Devils, The Details, helping restore his confidence after years of professional stagnation. By 2025, David Franklin is 63 years old and continues to balance occasional acting appearances with teaching, directing, and community film work. His estimated net worth is roughly $800,000, shaped by decades of acting and his more recent shift into filmmaking and education. Paul Goddard as Stark. Paul Goddard was born on March 13, 1961, in Sydney, Australia. At 38 years old, he joined FARSCAPE in more than 10 episodes as Stark, the fragile, half-masked Bannock healer whose fractured mind and empathic torment became one of the show's most haunting presences. His intense performance made Stark unforgettable despite limited screen time. But after FARSCAPE, Goddard faced a turning point that reshaped his entire life. Feeling drained by years of industry instability and exhausted by constant typecasting in eccentric outsider roles from The Matrix to The Lost World, he quietly walked away from mainstream acting. The pressure of maintaining a career that no longer fulfilled him pushed him into an unexpected retreat from public life. He began living reclusively in Sydney, limiting his appearances on screen, and instead turning toward coaching, music, and theater work behind the scenes. His personal life reflected the same sense of distance. Goddard never married and chose to remain single, devoting his energy to work, study, and the quieter routines he built for himself. He released an original music album in 2007 and later became an acting coach on Australia's Next Top Model, eventually transitioning into leadership and communication training. In 2025, Paul Goddard is 64 years old and continues to live a private life in Sydney while occasionally appearing in select Australian film and television projects. His estimated net worth is around $500,000, earned from acting, coaching, and long-term consulting work. Virginia Hay as Pau Zoto Jean. Virginia Hay was born on June 19, 1952, in Brisbane, Australia. At 47 years old, she played Pau Zoto Jean. As the serene, blue-skinned Delvian priest with a violent past and a soul full of restraint, she became the emotional and spiritual heart of FARSCAPE, and one of its most iconic characters. Yet her deep connection to Jean came at a devastating cost. The heavy blue prosthetics she wore for hours every day led to severe kidney bleeding, a medical crisis that forced her to leave FARSCAPE earlier than planned, a decision that broke her heart and shocked the fan community. Decades later, life dealt her another blow. In 2022, Hay was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin lymphoma, a battle she continues to face with resilience. Through chemotherapy, exhaustion, and physical decline, she has remained remarkably hopeful, speaking openly about her journey and refusing to let illness define her spirit. Her personal life has long been solitary but grounded. Hay never married and has no children, choosing instead to build a quiet, introspective life in London. Away from the industry, she became a meditation teacher and herbalist, helping others navigate stress and emotional trauma. In 2025, Virginia Hay is 73 years old and continues to live in London, focusing on gentle creative work, spiritual teaching, and her ongoing cancer treatments. Her estimated net worth is about $1 million, earned through decades of acting, teaching, and international fan events. Rebecca Rigg as Commandant Graza. Rebecca Rigg was born on December 31, 1963, in Christchurch, New Zealand. She joined FARSCAPE at 36 years old and played Commandant Meleon Graza, the manipulative, power-driven peacekeeper leader whose pheromone-based control made her one of the show's most chilling antagonists. Her presence added political tension and psychological warfare to the series' final arc. After FARSCAPE, Rigg's path changed in ways she never expected. A shoulder injury sustained during a stage production forced her to reduce her acting workload for several years, disrupting a career that had included films like Jerry Maguire and Raw Nerve, as well as theater work with major Australian companies. The injury limited her ability to perform physically demanding roles, and the typecasting that followed Graza made it even harder for her to secure new screen opportunities. The combination slowly pushed her towards smaller projects and eventually a quieter life away from the TV spotlight. Her personal life, however, remained far more grounded. Rigg married Australian performer Simon Gallagher in the 1990s and their long partnership became a steady anchor through her career's ups and downs. While she continued performing on stage, her focus gradually shifted toward voice work, cabaret, and improvisational theater, which allowed her to stay creative without further straining her injured shoulder. In 2025, Rebecca Rigg is 61 years old and remains active in Australia as a performer, improviser, and communications specialist. She now splits her time between theater, crisis communication work, and event performances. Her estimated net worth is about $700,000, built from decades of acting, stage work, and her later consulting career. Tammy Macintosh as Julushko Tunai Fenta Hovalis, Jewel. Tammy Macintosh was born on July 16, 1970, in Perth, Australia. She was 30 years old when she played Julushko Tunai Fenta Hovalis and plied the fiery, brilliant Interion whose screams could melt metal in FARSCAPE. Although Jewel was introduced late, Macintosh's energy added a new spark to the show's final seasons and the Peacekeeper Wars. But the end of FARSCAPE marked the beginning of an unexpected struggle. Macintosh was quickly typecast after playing Jewel, repeatedly offered roles that echoed the character's volatility rather than her actual range. The lack of diverse opportunities frustrated her, especially after years of respected work in Police Rescue, McLeod's Daughters, and The Flying Doctors. The emotional toll grew heavier during her long run on Wentworth, where the intensity of filming left her drained. She later admitted she would cry on walks home and video call her son every night just to steady herself. Through the turbulence, her family became her anchor. Macintosh married Mark Yates, and the two built a stable life together while raising their son. Their support helped her transition into different roles across television, theater, and eventually her acclaimed work as Kaz Proctor in Wentworth, which restored her reputation as one of Australia's strongest dramatic performers. By 2025, Tammy Macintosh is 55 years old and has returned to television with a new role in Home and Away, marking a quiet but confident comeback. With decades of work across Australian television, film, and theater, her estimated net worth stands at about $1.5 million, earned through persistence and creative reinvention. They shaped a universe we'll never forget, and their stories remind us how quickly time can slip away. But which FARSCAPE actor's journey surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories behind the stars.